Welcome back. State of the Nation. That's what we're discussing this morning, especially after the address that President Uhuru Kenyatta gave yesterday. Senator Kajwang, I want your thoughts in regards to this. So Uhuru has these big four agendas, fantastic agendas. But is there a way that we can finance Uhuru's agendas without having to raise taxpayers' money? Probably, perhaps, if the government was the one that was to push for opportunities, then the private sector rides on those opportunities and then scales them. That way we are able to finance his agendas, but also make sure that Kenyans are not paying deeply from their pockets.
It is possible to realize the big four without exerting too much pain on the taxpayer. The key thing is coordination. A number of the big four issues are devolved functions. If you're talking about food security, agriculture is devolved. If you're talking about health, it is devolved. If you're talking about housing, housing is devolved. And if you're talking about manufacturing, there are certain aspects of trade and industry that is devolved. What the national government ought to do is to ensure a coordinated approach with the county governments to avoid duplication. One of the things we must address as Kenyans is wastage and duplication of functions and duties. And that duplication exists everywhere. You find you have National Cohesion Commission. Now we have got a 14-member team that is supposed to do cohesion. Why then do we need the Caparo Commission? You find that you've got structures at the national level looking at health, which is devolved, which ought to be looked at the county level. So with proper coordination, it is possible. If you're going to spur manufacturing and industrialization, part of it is anchored on agricultural value addition. For example, in manufacturing, one of the targets is on textile industry. And we are saying that we are going to put thousands of acres under cotton, BT cotton. Remember, BT cotton has not even been approved because BT cotton is genetically modified. It is still undergoing field trials. So what we just need proper coordination. With good coordination, we'll be able to cut away the duplication, the wastage, and we'll be able to achieve some of those goals without taxing Kenyans extra for their realization.
Mr. Wakoli, your thoughts on financing Uhuru's big four agendas?
In addition to what Senator Kajwang is talking about, the issue of coordination, I look at it in two different ways. First is sealing corruption loopholes in this country. Then second is attracting foreign investment or foreign investors. Because corruption is one of the biggest challenge that I thought President should have focused on it seriously. We have so much wastages in this country. We have so much resources that go to waste and all money that go to people's pockets. And the workmanship is very poor. The other day I was at this building that was constructed at NHIF. It's called parking silo. You go to that building, actually you look just the finishing itself. There are already cracks all over. And this is something that costed a lot, huge amount of money. In fact, there's a parliamentary committee that went there and actually said the thing that they saw is not worth the money that is being quoted. So what happened? Where did this money go to?
Again, the issue of quality.
The issue of quality and corruption. Because people want to gain so much by doing very little. Then in terms of foreign investment, because real estate is one of the growing businesses and some of the areas that Kenyans have not tapped into. And this real estate development can only be achieved if we attract foreigners, people who want to invest in this country, and public-private partnership, where we have private entities investing or partnering with the government to invest in government projects. And by that doing, they agree on modalities of how this money is going to be repaid back. So we can take a multi-sector approach in terms of realizing the big four without necessarily exerting pressure on already overstretched Kenyans in terms of taxation.
Bernard Wakoli's comment in regards to Uhuru and corruption now takes us into the next part. What did President Uhuru Kenyatta have to say in regards to his administration choosing to fight corruption, especially as he's serving his last term? Take a look.
Leaders at every level of government must demonstrate a desire and a commitment to serve. And in particular, we must all maintain the highest level of integrity. Those days when one could enjoy public goods without fear that action will be taken against you are gone. And indeed, to demonstrate this point, last year, ill-gotten public assets valued at approximately Kenya shillings 500 million were recovered, and civil proceedings were instituted for the preservation and recovery of other assets valued at more than Kenya shillings 6 billion. To deepen good governance, we have continued to digitize key services to seal loopholes used for fraud. And indeed, I do expect that the new officials whom we have worked together to put in office, both in prosecution and investigations, will bring cases against all, including the powerful and privileged, to show Kenyans that none of us are above the law. Indeed, through the Chief Justice who is with us today, I also urge the judiciary to do their part to ensure that orders are not frivolously used by individuals to avoid justice. And I also urge you, honorable members, to give us the legal tools we need to win the war against the lords of graft. Having made these efforts, I want to repeat what every Kenyan in their heart of heart knows, that we must come together to fight this vice if we are to conquer it.
All right, President Uhuru Kenyatta, they are putting a spotlight on Kenya's judiciary system. Senator Kajwang, what did you think in regards to that, especially when he said that Kenya's wealthy and powerful who have committed corruption crimes should find themselves, you know, having to answer to those commitments? Look at how Brazil handles it. Look at how China handles it. Our neighbor, South Africa, Zuma had to step down. Kenya, we are lucky when it comes to fighting our corruption. Your thoughts on that?
The president was a bit tepid when it came to his comments on corruption yesterday. When he spoke to us at the Devolution Conference in Kakamega, I think he was much more forceful on the issue of corruption and our performance. And he made it clear that if you're not going to perform, if you're going to engage in graft, prepare to leave office, because there are others who are willing to do a good job for this country. Maybe that spirit of reconciliation, it took it too far. I am in no mood to reconcile with the corrupt. I am in no mood to reconcile with those who are stealing money that is meant to stock hospitals, that is meant to develop our agricultural and road sectors. On corruption, we must be firm. The buck, we have said previously, stops with the president in certain aspects. But there are many players involved. There is the judicial process, where the president thinks that the judiciary has not been fast enough in determining matters that have been brought before them. Indeed, I chair the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament, of Senate, and sometimes we find that issues that prima facie are cases of graft, and you can see someone who used to own a bicycle, today owns a bulletproof vehicle, and that person is in court and is walking around, is enjoying protection as a result of court orders. I think that's an issue that we need to look at. The freedom, the space we have vis-a-vis the practical aspects of dealing with this graft. However, the president also has certain powers that he does not have to rely on parliament, on the judiciary, or any other bodies. He has administrative sanctions. He can carry out administrative sanctions. He can make sure that his cabinet and his government does not have people who are suspected of corruption. He can order lifestyle audits of senior government officials. Right. And it will be very easy to tell that this guy, before he became a minister, he had nothing, and today he's building mansions all over the city. And he can take action on that, and people can see. We in Parliament, and particularly my committee, I know Kenyans are telling me that we need to see some of these former governors in jail. We are going to live up to that.
And Senator Kajwang, speaking of systems, don't you not think even the way forward with this perhaps probably is to remove ESCC and strengthen the DPP's office?
Well, ESCC is the only old wine in the system currently.
Right.
We've got a new parliament, we've got a new DPP, we've got a new AG, but we got the old ESCC. I think ESCC must transform itself, because Kenyans don't want to wait for them to die
and strengthening
or for
of
their
DPP's
term
office?
for their term to end. The DPP's office has got a lot of strength. But remember, the DPP does not carry out investigations. In fact, we have got a new DCI. So we should be seeing some synergies between the DCI and ESCC in terms of investigation of crime, investigation of theft, and investigation of economic crimes. We decided that ESCC would deal with economic crimes. Its record is not encouraging. And we sat with the ESCC in Kakamega at the Devolution Conference, and we raised issues about what we think they need to do to strengthen the war on corruption. Corruption has moved to the villages, where you have a new crop of millionaires, and that's good because devolution was supposed to spread the wealth. Unfortunately, these new millionaires are not engaged in any meaningful production. They are clerks, they are procurement officials, they are accountants, they are ministers, they are MCAs in the counties. Those people who are engaged in production are not making money out of counties. Those people who are pushing paper are the ones making money. And sometimes if you have eyes, you can clearly see that this is a case of corruption. ESCC should help us on such matters.
Bernard, let's walk down memory lane. 2015, we saw a very passionate, aggressive Kenyatta here saying that within my government, we will fight graft. 2016, he was a bit timid and he was shy. He was saying, and I quote, "What do you want me to do towards Kenyans?" 2017, okay, that was an election period. And then this time around, you know, like you said, we haven't seen him touch on corruption as much as we've wanted him to do so in the State of Nation address. This is his last term. He has nothing to lose. Don't you not expect him to fight corruption, you know?
Yeah, that's what we expect. And senators actually put into perspective everything that the president needs to be done, and the picture that corruption has done to this country. And sometimes I say we talk much. There's much talk and less action in terms of apprehending the corrupt individuals in this country. Because there's a time the president came up with a list of individuals, public officers and powerful people in government who are being suspected or who had been mentioned in corrupt deals. But after that, the names were, put there. People went to court to exonerate themselves from those, from that list. And, so there was a list without evidence. Or these people found a way of, not including evidence in that list. So even when the DPP took up the matter to investigate and prosecute, not investigate, to prosecute those individuals, some of them, went ahead and even sued the government for defaming for defamation.
Right.
And when the president comes up with such kind of names, we expected that the heads are going to roll. Because this is a president talking, and the president has all the state machinery at his disposal. He can, make any changes that he feels like doing. But those people are mentioned. Then the debate came up on how these people can step aside. Others decided to stay put in those offices without even blinking an eye and saying, okay, we are there, we are part of this government, and we are going to work. So corruption is a big challenge. Right. And I know for sure what Senate is talking about. You go to your villages, there are a crop of emerging billionaires, not even millionaires. And this issue of tendering process, I don't know how we are going to make it, to streamline it so that, we have people who are qualified providing these tenders. Because we have had now a case where the middlemen in tendering processes. You have a company, I don't have a company, so you want to tender, I know somebody there, you pass through me, I present the documents, and the money is shared, between those. So we have people who are just working as brokers within that process and earning a lot of money.
I want us to quickly touch on the issue of new housing program. And there's this wise saying, or not wise saying, but there's this social saying that your dreams are valid. And the thing is, President Uhuru Kenyatta said yesterday, and I quote, "My dream is one day, in the not-too-distant future, owning a decent home will be within reach to every Kenyan of median and most income. Senator Kajwang, is that dream valid?
Very valid.
Is it doable?
You don't even have to go to Europe. Just within Africa, you'll find countries that have ensured that citizens get some decent housing. Go to Morocco, you'll not get the kind of shanties that you get in Kenya. It is demeaning for Kenyans who pay taxes to live in the kind of conditions that they live in Kibera, in Mathare, in Gombongo, and even here in Pipeline in Nairobi. To be wading in the mud, like right now it is raining. People are living like animals. Why? Because the government that collects taxes, collects money, is not reinvesting that to make sure that they've got decent housing. When we were little children, we were told that the basic human needs are food, housing, and shelter. And so it is achievable. I believe it is achievable. What we need to do is develop the PPPs that my colleague was talking about. Ensure that we incentivize the private sector to build housing. Ensure that even the cost of building materials, cost of construction, licenses and permits are not an obstruction so that more people can get into that. Kenyans are already wired into these. There are certain stations, FM stations, where if you tune in, it is always about land. It's always about land being sold here, land being sold there. So I think Kenyans already can be easily mobilized to think about housing, go beyond land, because we end up owning little pieces of land all over. I'm sure all of us here maybe has some land in Mavoko, in Syokimau, or wherever. So we need to move the next step and develop them. But the state also must invest. We've got the National Housing Corporation at the national level, but housing is also devolved. I see no reason why counties cannot develop low-cost, affordable housing, starting with their employees, and also to offer maybe some mortgage schemes where maybe someone can pay rent, you pay rent, and that rent translates into ownership, the way NSSF has done it previously.
All right, Bernard, I want you to have the last say in regards to this. And before we went on break, we were asking, should we begin as a nation to start having a different approach of how we see political competition in this country? The reason why I asked that is that, picking from what Senator Kajwang had said, we don't want a time when economically we're doing so well, tourism, then 5 years we dip and we go back up. So do we need to start changing our approach towards political competition?
It's just about attitude change and the incentives that are attached to our politics. Our politics is very aggressive and very divisive because there's so much that we have attached to politics. We see politicians as, as people who control resources. Because when we talk about marginalization in this country, we have people who have been appointed in government, especially as CECs and principal secretaries from almost all the regions, from almost all the communities. But people within those communities don't look at them as their representatives. They look at them as people who have just been put there as strangers of the government. But they want somebody who has, who is elected, being in charge of allocating resources, being in charge of ensuring that, their representation is heard in that, top positions. That's the mindset. So if we have a system which recognizes that every individual or everybody is worthy holding any particular position in this country, and the country cannot always remain hostage to 2 or 3 individuals. Like now we are talking about maybe a referendum that, discussion is on. We are seeing already a wage being put in place. Like others are saying no, others are saying yes. But they are not giving us proper, adequate reasons as to why we are saying no or yes. So people are just joining. Because I know Honorable former Prime Minister Raila said no or yes, I'm supporting him. Right. Because Ruto said yes or no, I'm supporting him. We need to interrogate these things and, come up with a structure that appreciates each and every Kenyan.
Okay. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you so much for your time this morning. That is Bernard Wakoli, political analyst, and of course, Moses Kajwang, Senator of Homa Bay, helping us unpackage yesterday's State of the Nation address by President Uhuru Kenyatta. When we